The used Compassion moved through space like a giant white whale. Its hull gleamed with the bright red crosses that marked it as a hospital ship. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge, watching the stars through the main window. He had been captain of the Compassion for 5 years, and he loved his job. Instead of fighting wars, he saved lives. "Captain, we're getting a distress signal," said Lieutenant Bob Clark from his station. "It's coming from the Kepler sector." Jake turned around. "What kind of ship?" "Civilian transport, sir." "The Stellar Dawn? They say they have engine trouble?" "And wounded passengers." Jake nodded. This was exactly the kind of call they trained for. Set course for their location. Tell Dr. Harper to prepare the medical bay. The Compassion was huge, almost a mile long. It had 20 medical bays, each one bigger than most hospitals on Earth. The ship carried 200 doctors, nurses, and medical staff. They came from all over human space, united by one goal: to heal anyone who needed help. Dr. Lisa Harper got the message in Medical Bay 7. She was checking on a patient from their last mission, a young alien child who had been hurt in a mining accident. The little blue-skinned boy was sleeping peacefully now, his broken bones healing well. "Amy, get the trauma teams ready," Lisa called to Nurse Amy Carter, who was organizing medical supplies nearby. "We have incoming wounded," Amy smiled. She was young, only 25, but she had already saved dozens of lives. "How many, Doctor?" "Unknown. But Bob says it's a transport ship, so could be a lot." In the engine room, Chief Engineer Pete Davis was running diagnostics on the ship's systems. The Compassion was not built for speed or fighting. It was built to save lives. Its engines were designed to be reliable, not fast. Its shields were meant to protect patients, not fight battles. "Everything looks good down here," Pete told his team. "The new medical scanner array is working perfectly." The scanner array was something Pete was proud of. It could detect life signs from incredible distances and tell the medical team exactly what kinds of injuries they might find. It helped them prepare before they even arrived. Dr. Kevin Walsh was in the surgical prep area, getting ready for whatever they might find. He was the ship's trauma surgeon, and he had steady hands and a calm mind. He had performed surgery on dozens of alien species, learning their biology so he could save their lives. "Kevin, you might want to see this," called Dr. Susan Bell from the communications station. She was reviewing the distress signal data. "The Stellar Dawn is carrying families?" "Lots of children." Kevin's face went serious. He hated seeing children hurt. "I'll prep the pediatric bay too." The Compassion had everything needed to treat any species in known space. The doctors studied alien biology like others studied art. They knew that Vorthan hearts had 2 chambers, that Kalari blood was green, and that Zephyrian bones were hollow like bird bones. This knowledge helped them save lives. Captain Morrison walked through the ship's corridors, checking on his crew. The walls were painted in soft colors and gentle music played throughout the ship. Everything was designed to calm patients and help them heal. The Compassion was a place of peace in a sometimes violent galaxy. "Captain?" came a voice over the intercom. It was Bob from the bridge. "We're 20 minutes out from the Stellar Dawn." Jake picked up his communicator. "Any word from them?" "They stopped transmitting about 5 minutes ago." "Could be their communications are down," Jake frowned. That was not unusual, but it always made him worry. When ships went silent, it usually meant things were getting worse. In the main medical bay, Dr. Harper was briefing her team. She was a small woman with graying hair, but she commanded respect from everyone on the ship. She had been saving lives for 30 years, and she knew her job better than anyone. "We don't know what we're going to find," she told the 20 doctors and nurses gathered around her. "But we're ready for anything. Remember, we're protected by the Galactic Medical Neutrality Treaty. Even in war zones, hospital ships are safe." The treaty was something all of human space was proud of. It had been signed by every major species in the galaxy. It said that medical ships, hospitals, and medical personnel were neutral in all conflicts. They could go anywhere to save lives, and no one would attack them. Nurse Amy Carter was setting up the emergency receiving area. She had beds ready for 50 patients, with all the equipment needed to stabilize serious injuries. She worked quickly and efficiently, her hands moving without thought. She had done this hundreds of times. "Amy, are you ready?" asked Dr. Harper. "Always ready, Doctor." In the ship's communication center, Lieutenant Clark was trying to raise the stellar dawn on all frequencies. He had sent the standard medical assistance message, but there was no response. The ship was there on sensors, but it was not moving and not talking. "Captain, I'm getting some strange readings," Clark called to Jake. "There are other ships in the area." Jake came over to look at the display. 3 shapes appeared on the screen, hiding behind a large asteroid. They were much smaller than the Compassion, but they were clearly warships. "Can you identify them?" "Working on it, sir." "They're not broadcasting identification signals." Jake felt a cold feeling in his stomach. Military ships that did not identify themselves were usually up to no good. But the Compassion was a hospital ship. The treaty protected them. "Keep trying." "To contact the Stellar Dawn?" Jake ordered. "And try to talk to those other ships, too." The Compassion moved closer to the distress signal. Through the bridge windows, Jake could see the Stellar Dawn. It was a small ship, designed to carry about 200 passengers between star systems. But something was wrong. The ship was dark, and there was no movement around it. "Captain, detecting life signs on the transport," reported Dr. Harper from the medical bay. "But they're weak. We need to get over there fast." Jake made his decision. "Prepare boarding shuttles. Medical teams, get ready to transfer patients." "Sir," said Lieutenant Clark, his voice tight with worry. "Those 3 ships just moved out from behind the asteroid. They're heading straight for us." Jake looked at the display. The 3 ships were sleek and dangerous looking, with weapon ports clearly visible. They were moving fast, much faster than the Compassion could move. "Open a channel," Jake ordered. "All frequencies." The main screen flickered, and Jake began to speak. "Unknown vessels, this is Captain Jake Morrison of the UES Compassion. We are a hospital ship responding to a medical emergency. Please identify yourselves." There was silence for a long moment. Then the screen filled with the image of an alien face. It was Vorthan, with gray skin and yellow eyes. The alien wore a military uniform with symbols that Jake recognized as belonging to the Vorthan Empire. "Human ship," the Vorthan said in accented English. "You are trespassing in our space. Turn around and leave immediately." Jake felt confused. "This is not Vorthan space. We are in neutral territory, responding to a medical emergency. We are protected by the Galactic Medical Neutrality Treaty." The Vorthan's yellow eyes showed no emotion. "There is no treaty that protects human military vessels disguised as hospital ships." "What?" Jake could not believe what he was hearing. "We are not a military vessel. We are a hospital ship. Look at our identification codes. Check our medical certification." But the Vorthan had already cut the communication. On the display, Jake could see the 3 ships changing course, moving to surround the Compassion. "Captain," said Dr. Harper over the intercom, "what's happening up there?" Jake looked at his crew. They were all staring at him, waiting for orders. But he had never been in a situation like this before. The Compassion was not built for fighting. It had only basic shields and no weapons at all. "Bob, try to contact Galactic Command," Jake ordered. "Tell them what's happening." "Already trying, sir." "But we're too far from any relay stations." The 3 Vorthan ships had now formed a triangle around the Compassion. They were close enough that Jake could see their weapon ports opening. "Unknown vessels," Jake tried again on the open channel. "We are a medical vessel. We have patients on board. Please respond." But there was no response. The Vorthan ships began to power up their weapons, the energy readings showing clearly on the Compassion's sensors. Jake knew his ship was in terrible danger. But he also knew that the Stellar Dawn still had people on board who needed help. He had to make a choice that would change everything. The first energy blast hit the Compassion's port side, sending shock waves through the entire ship. Captain Jake Morrison grabbed onto his chair as the lights flickered and alarms began to sound. The peaceful quiet of the hospital ship was shattered by the screaming of metal and the crash of medical equipment falling to the floor. "Shields up!" Jake shouted, but he knew it would not help much. The compassion shields were designed to protect against space debris and radiation, not military weapons. In Medical Bay 7, Dr. Lisa Harper was thrown against the wall as the ship shook. The young alien boy she had been treating woke up crying, scared by the noise and confusion. Amy Carter ran to help him, speaking softly to calm his fears. "What's happening?" Amy asked, her voice shaking. "I don't know," Lisa replied, but she had a terrible feeling in her stomach. She had heard stories about ships being attacked, but never a hospital ship. It was unthinkable. The second blast hit the ship's engine section. Chief Engineer Pete Davis watched in horror as his beautiful engines began to fail. Warning lights flashed red all around him, and the steady hum of the power generators began to stutter. "We're losing main power," Pete shouted into his communicator. "I'm trying to keep life support online." On the bridge, Lieutenant Bob Clark was frantically trying to send a distress signal. But the Vorthan ships were jamming all communications. No one in the galaxy would know what was happening here. "Captain, our shields are down to 30%, Bob reported. "We can't take much more of this." Jake opened the communication channel again. "Vorthan ships, please stop firing. We are a hospital ship. We have patients on board, including children." But the Vorthans did not stop. The third blast hit the medical bays directly. The explosion tore through the hull, sucking air and equipment into space. In Medical Bay 3, Dr. Kevin Walsh was operating on a patient when the blast hit. The lights went out and emergency power kicked in, casting everything in red light. "I can't see," Kevin shouted. "I need more light." But there was no more light. The patient on his table, a middle-aged woman from the mining colonies, died as Kevin tried desperately to save her in the darkness. He had never lost a patient like this before, and tears ran down his face as he realized she was gone. Throughout the ship, people were dying. The Compassion's medical staff had dedicated their lives to healing, but now they were helpless as their ship was torn apart around them. Nurses ran through the corridors carrying patients to safer areas, but there were no safe areas left. The fourth blast destroyed the ship's engines completely. The Compassion went dark and silent, drifting in space like a wounded animal. Inside, emergency lights cast eerie shadows on the walls, and the air was filled with smoke and the smell of burning metal. Jake knew his ship was finished. The Compassion could not move, could not fight, and could not run. He made the hardest decision of his life. "All hands, this is the captain," he announced over the ship's intercom. "Prepare for boarding. Do not resist. I repeat, do not resist." The 3 Vorthan ships moved close to the Compassion. Jake could see alien soldiers in spacesuits floating toward his ship, carrying weapons and cutting tools. They moved with the efficiency of troops who had done this many times before. Dr. Harper gathered her medical staff in the main corridor. "Stay calm," she told them. "We are protected by galactic law. They cannot harm medical personnel." But when the Vorthan soldiers cut through the hull and entered the ship, they showed no respect for galactic law. They were tall and gray-skinned with yellow eyes that showed no emotion. Their leader, a scarred warrior with metal implants on his face, looked at the humans with disgust. "You are all prisoners of the Vorthan Empire," he announced in broken English. "You will come with us." "We are medical personnel," Dr. Harper said, stepping forward. "We are protected by the Galactic Medical Neutrality Treaty." "You cannot—" The Vorthan leader raised his weapon and fired. Dr. Harper. The woman who had saved thousands of lives fell to the floor and did not move again. The other medical staff screamed and backed away, but there was nowhere to go. "Any other questions?" the Vorthan asked. The soldiers moved through the ship like hunters. They found the patients in the medical bays and showed them no mercy. The young alien boy that Dr. Harper had been treating was killed in his bed too, weak to run or hide. The soldiers said they were cleaning up loose ends. Captain Morrison and his surviving crew were forced to watch as their life's work was destroyed. The Vorthans took special pleasure in killing the medical staff, calling them weak and pathetic. They said humans were soft, that their kindness was a disease that needed to be cured. Dr. Kevin Walsh tried to protect a group of wounded patients, but the Vorthons pushed him aside and opened fire. Kevin had spent his life learning how to heal, but now he could only watch as everything he believed in was destroyed. "Please," Kevin begged. "They're just patients. They can't hurt anyone." A Vorthon soldier looked at him with those cold yellow eyes. "Exactly, they are weak. The galaxy has no place for the weak." The soldier raised his weapon and Kevin closed his eyes. But the blast never came. Instead, he heard the soldier laugh. "We'll keep some of you alive," the soldier said, "so you can tell others what happens to those who pretend to be peaceful." The Vorthons took their prisoners to the cargo bay, where they were forced to kneel on the cold metal floor. Jake looked around at his surviving crew. Less than 50 people remained out of the 200 who had started this mission. The others were dead, killed for the crime of trying to help others. Amy Carter was crying silently, her nurse's uniform torn and bloody. Pete Davis stared at the floor, his hands shaking. Bob Clark kept trying to send distress signals on a small emergency transmitter, but the Vorthons had destroyed all the communication equipment. The Vorthon leader stood in front of the prisoners. "Your government will pay to get you back," he said. "But first, you will send a message to all human space. You will tell them that the Vorthon Empire does not recognize your medical treaties. You will tell them that any human ship entering our territory will be destroyed." Jake looked up at the alien warrior. "This is not your territory. We were in neutral space." The Vorthon smiled, showing sharp teeth. "All space belongs to the strong. Humans are weak. Your compassion is weakness. Your healing is weakness. Today, we have shown the galaxy what happens to the weak." Hours later, the Vorthon ships jumped away, leaving the compassion drifting in space. The few survivors were left in the cargo bay with just enough air and water to survive until rescue came. Jake used the last working transmitter to send a distress signal, knowing it would take days for anyone to reach them. As they waited in the darkness, Jake thought about Dr. Harper and all the others who had died. These were good people, people who had dedicated their lives to helping others. They had believed that their compassion would protect them, that their mission of healing would keep them safe, but they had been wrong. News of the attack spread through human space like wildfire. The Galactic Council met in emergency session and condemned the attack in strong language. They called it a violation of all civilized behavior and demanded that the Vorthons be held accountable, but the Vorthons laughed at the condemnation. They said the compassion was a military vessel in disguise, and that they had acted in self-defense. They provided no evidence for this claim, but they also showed no remorse for what they had done. Other alien species offered their sympathy to humanity, but none of them offered to help. They all had trade agreements with the Vorthon Empire, and they did not want to risk their economic partnerships over one hospital ship on Earth. The news hit the scientific community especially hard. Dr. Alex Bennett was working in his laboratory when he heard about the attack. He was a quiet man who preferred books to people, but he had always been proud of his sister Maya, who served as a doctor on the Compassion. When he learned that Maya was among the dead, something inside Alex broke. He sat in his lab for hours, staring at the wall, unable to believe that his gentle sister was gone. Maya had always believed that science and medicine could make the galaxy a better place. She had died trying to save others, but Alex was a different kind of scientist. While Maya had studied how to heal, Alex had studied how life worked at its most basic level. He knew things about alien biology that even the medical community did not know. He had spent years learning how different species functioned, how their bodies worked, how they lived, and now, for the first time in his life, Alex began to think about how they could die. The attack on the Compassion had shown the galaxy that human compassion was seen as weakness. The Vorthons had killed medical personnel and patients without mercy, and the rest of the galaxy had done nothing to stop them. But Alex Bennett was about to show them all that human beings were capable of. Much more than just compassion. He was about to show them that when you attack those who dedicate their lives to healing, you awaken something far more dangerous than any military force, The galaxy was about to learn that the greatest weapon is not always the one that destroys the most, but the one that destroys the right target, in the right way, at the right time, and Alex Bennett was very good at being precise. Dr. Alex Bennett sat in his laboratory 3 days after the funeral. The room was quiet except for the hum of computers and the soft bubbling of research equipment. On his desk sat a picture of his sister Maya, smiling in her white doctor's coat. Next to it lay a datapad with news reports about the attack on the Compassion. The Galactic news was full of anger and sadness about the hospital ship, but Alex noticed something else. The reports all said the same thing: nothing would be done. The Galactic Council had made speeches and passed resolutions, but the Vorthans faced no real punishment. Trade continued as normal. Life went on. Alex picked up the datapad and read the latest report. The Vorthan Empire had released a statement saying they would attack any human ship that entered their territory. They claimed the right to defend themselves against human expansion. The other alien species had accepted this explanation and moved on to other news. They think we're weak, Alex said to the empty room. They think our kindness makes us helpless. For most of his life, Alex had been a peaceful man. He studied alien biology because he found it fascinating, not because he wanted to hurt anyone. He had published papers about how different species had evolved, how their bodies worked, how they lived and grew. His work had helped doctors like Maya save lives across the galaxy, but now Maya was dead, killed by aliens who saw her compassion as weakness. And the galaxy had decided that her death did not matter. Alex stood up and walked to his research files. He had been studying alien biology for 15 years, focusing on how different species had adapted to their homeworlds. He knew things about Vorthan physiology that even Vorthan doctors might not know. He had studied their genetic structure, their immune systems, their biochemistry. He had learned all of this to help save lives. But knowledge could be used in different ways. Alex opened his files on Vorthan biology. The Vorthans came from a harsh world with extreme temperatures and dangerous radiation. Their bodies had evolved to survive in conditions that would kill most other species. They were tough, which was why they made good soldiers, but every strength was also a weakness. The Vorthans' tough immune system was designed to fight off the diseases of their home world. It was very good at fighting those specific threats, but it had blind spots. There were things it could not see, could not fight, could not stop. Alex began to take notes, his mind working faster than it had in years. He was not thinking like a peaceful scientist anymore. He was thinking like a weapons designer, and he was very good at it. His first idea was simple: create a disease that would only affect Vorthans. Their unique biology made them different from every other species in the galaxy. A pathogen designed specifically for their genetic markers would leave everyone else completely safe, but that was not enough. Alex wanted something more elegant, more fitting. The Vorthans had attacked a hospital ship. They had killed doctors and patients. They had shown no mercy to those who dedicated their lives to healing. So Alex decided to give them a taste of their own medicine. He began working 18 hours a day, sleeping in his lab and eating simple meals while he studied. His research assistant, Dr. Nina Foster, was worried about him. Nina had worked with Alex for 3 years, and she had never seen him like this. "Alex, you need to rest," Nina said, bringing him coffee on the 4th day. "You've been working non-stop since the funeral." Alex looked up from his computer screen. His eyes were red from lack of sleep, but they were also bright with purpose. "I'm close to a breakthrough, Nina, something that could change everything." "What kind of breakthrough?" Alex hesitated. Nina was a good person, kind and gentle like Maya had been. She studied biology to help people, not to hurt them. But she was also brilliant, and Alex needed her help. "I'm working on a new medical treatment," Alex said carefully. "Something that could help prevent future attacks on medical ships." Nina nodded, not understanding the full truth. She helped Alex with his research, thinking they were working on something to protect doctors and patients. She did not know that Alex was actually creating the most precise biological weapon ever designed. Alex's breakthrough came on the 7th day. He had been studying Vorthen's cellular structure when he realized something amazing. The same genetic markers that made Vorthens so tough also made them vulnerable to a specific type of pathogen. It was like they had built-in weak points that only someone who really understood their biology could find. The pathogen Alex designed was beautiful in its simplicity. It would lie dormant in most environments, completely harmless to any species, except Vorthens. When it encountered Vorthen cells, it would activate and begin to reproduce. The infected Vorthen would feel fine at first, but the pathogen would slowly damage their organs from the inside. The disease would be painful and frightening, but not immediately fatal. The Vorthens would have time to understand what was happening. To them, they would have time to feel helpless, just like the patients on the Compassion had felt helpless, but Alex was not finished. He wanted to make sure the pathogen could not be stopped or cured easily. He designed it to constantly change its structure, making it almost impossible for Vorthen doctors to develop a treatment. It would adapt and evolve, staying one step ahead of any cure. The final touch was the delivery system. Alex knew that creating the pathogen was only half the battle. He needed a way to get it to the Vorthens without them knowing it was coming. It had to be something they would not suspect. Something that would spread naturally through their population. Alex spent 2 weeks developing the perfect delivery method. The pathogen could be hidden in standard medical supplies, the same supplies that were traded throughout the galaxy. It would remain completely dormant until it reached an environment with the specific atmospheric conditions found on Vorthen. Worlds. The irony was perfect. The Vorthens had attacked a ship full of medical supplies meant to save lives. Now medical supplies would be the weapon that brought them down. On the 20th day, Alex's friend Admiral Chris Parker came to visit. Chris and Alex had grown up together, but they had taken different paths. Chris had joined the military to protect humanity, while Alex had become a scientist to help it grow. "Alex, you look terrible," Chris said as he entered the lab. "Nina called me. She's worried about you." Alex looked at his old friend. Chris was wearing his dress uniform, the one with all the medals for bravery and service. He looked every inch the military hero, strong and confident and ready to fight humanity's enemies. "I'm fine, Chris. Just working on something important." Chris sat down across from Alex's desk. "The whole fleet is talking about the Compassion. The crews are angry, Alex. They want to hit back at the Vorthens, but Command won't let them. They say it would start a war we can't win. Maybe Command is right," Alex said quietly. "Maybe we can't win a war against the Vorthens. They're stronger than us, more aggressive. They have better weapons and more ships." Chris frowned. "That doesn't sound like you, Alex. You never give up on anything." Alex smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "I didn't say I was giving up. I said we can't win their kind of war. But there are other kinds of wars, Chris, wars that are fought with knowledge instead of weapons. Wars that are won by being smarter, not stronger." Chris did not understand what Alex meant, but he could see the change in his friend. The quiet, gentle scientist he had known was gone. In his place was someone harder, colder, more dangerous. "Alex, what are you working on?" "Something that will make sure no one ever attacks a human hospital ship again." Chris left the lab feeling troubled. He had seen that look before, in the eyes of soldiers who had lost too much in battle. It was the look of someone who had been pushed too far and was about to push back. Alex worked for another week, perfecting his creation. He tested it on Vorthen tissue samples, watching as the pathogen did exactly what he had designed it to do. It was elegant, efficient, and completely untraceable. Nina began to suspect that something was wrong when she saw Alex preparing large quantities of the pathogen. "Alex, what are you planning to do with all of this?" Alex looked at her for a long moment. Nina was a good person, but she was also naive. She still believed that the galaxy was fundamentally fair, that good people would be protected and bad people would be punished. The attack on the Compassion had not broken her faith in justice. "I'm going to save lives, Nina. I'm going to make sure that what happened to Maya never happens again." "How?" "By showing the galaxy that humans are not as weak as they think we are. By proving that when you attack those who dedicate their lives to healing, You face consequences that are far worse than any military defeat. Nina felt a chill run down her spine. Alex, you're scaring me. What exactly are you planning? Alex turned back to his work. I'm planning to give the Vorthons exactly what they deserve. They wanted to show the galaxy that compassion is weakness. I'm going to show them that compassion, when betrayed, becomes something far more dangerous than simple anger. You're talking about revenge. I'm talking about justice. The kind of justice that makes sure this never happens again. Nina backed away from the lab table. She had finally realized what Alex was creating, and she was horrified. Alex, you can't do this. This isn't what Maya would have wanted. Alex's hand stopped moving. For a moment, Nina thought she had reached him. 3 months after the attack on the Compassion, medical supply ships began leaving Earth on their regular routes to colonies and trading posts throughout the galaxy. The ships carried bandages, medicines, surgical equipment, and other supplies. The hospitals needed to save lives. No one suspected that some of these innocent supplies carried something else. Dr. Alex Bennett watched the departure schedules from his laboratory. Ship after ship left Earth's orbit, heading to worlds where Vorthons lived and worked. The pathogen he had created was hidden in medical gel that looked exactly like the healing gel doctors used to treat burns. Even advanced scanners could not tell the difference. Alex had been very careful about which supplies he contaminated. He chose only items that would be used in hospitals and medical centers on worlds with Vorthon populations. The pathogen would remain dormant until it was exposed to the specific atmospheric conditions found on those worlds. Then it would activate and begin to spread. The first reports came from Kepler-7, a mining world on the edge of Vorthon space. The planet had a small Vorthon garrison that protected the mining operations. Dr. Sarah Kim, the human doctor who ran the medical center there, sent a routine report to Earth about her supply shipment. Everything arrived in good condition, she wrote. The new healing gel works very well. I used it to treat a Vorthon soldier who was injured in a mining accident. He healed faster than I expected. Alex smiled when he read the report. Dr. Kim had no idea that she had just infected the first Vorthon with his creation. The soldier would feel fine for several days, maybe even a week. But the pathogen was already spreading through his system, and he would carry it to other Vorthons without knowing it. 2 weeks later, Alex received another report from Kepler-7. This time, Dr. Kim sounded worried. I'm seeing a strange illness among the Vorthon population, she wrote. It started with the soldier I treated, but now it's spreading to others. The symptoms are unlike anything I've seen before. The patients complain of weakness and pain, but I can't find the cause. I've sent samples to the main medical center on Vorthon Prime for analysis. Alex leaned back in his chair, feeling satisfied. The pathogen was working exactly as he had designed it. It was spreading from Vorthon to Vorthon, but it was completely harmless to humans and other species. Dr. Kim and her human staff were perfectly safe. Over the next month, similar reports began coming in from other worlds. Vorthon colonies, trading posts, and military bases all reported the same mysterious illness. The disease seemed to target only Vorthons, leaving other species completely unaffected. The Vorthon medical establishment was baffled. Their best doctors and scientists could not identify the pathogen, let alone find a cure for it. The disease attacked multiple organ systems at once, causing pain and weakness that grew worse over time. Patients would linger for weeks, getting sicker and sicker before finally dying. Alex monitored the reports with cold satisfaction. He had designed the pathogen to be slow and painful, just like the death his sister had suffered. The Vorthons would have time to understand what was happening to them, time to feel helpless and afraid. Admiral Chris Parker visited Alex again 6 weeks after the outbreak began. Chris looked tired and worried, and he carried a datapad full of reports from across the galaxy. Alex, have you heard about this disease that's hitting the Vorthons? Chris asked. Alex looked up from his work, trying to seem casual. I've seen some reports. Sounds serious. It's more than serious. It's devastating. Entire Vorthon colonies are getting sick. Their military bases are losing soldiers every day. Some of their outer worlds have gone completely dark. Chris sat down and rubbed his face with his hands. The weird thing is, it only affects Vorthons. Every other species is completely immune. Our scientists are calling it the most species-specific pathogen they've ever seen. That is strange, Alex said. Maybe it's something from their homeworld, some kind of genetic weakness they've always had. Chris shook his head. That's what everyone thought at first, but the timing is too convenient. This outbreak started just a few months after they attacked the Compassion. Some people are starting to think it might not be natural. Alex felt a brief moment of concern. What do you mean? I mean, some people think this disease was created on purpose. Made by someone who knows a lot about Vorthon biology and wanted to hurt them specifically. Alex forced himself to stay calm. That sounds like something out of a science fiction story, Chris. Who would have the knowledge to create something like that? Chris looked directly at Alex. Someone who spent years studying alien biology. Someone with access to advanced laboratories and genetic engineering equipment. Someone with a reason to hate the Vorthons. For a moment, the two friends stared at each other in silence. Alex could see suspicion in Chris's eyes, but he could also see doubt. Chris wanted to believe that his childhood friend was not capable of something so terrible. Chris, you can't seriously think I had anything to do with this, Chris sighed. I don't know what to think, Alex. I know you're angry about Maya. We all are. But this... If someone really did create this disease on purpose, it would be the greatest act of biological warfare in galactic history. And it would also be incredibly effective, Alex said quietly. The Vorthons are pulling their ships back to defend. Their homeworlds, their expansion has stopped completely. They're too busy trying to survive to threaten anyone else. Chris stood up to leave. Alex, if you know anything about this, you need to tell me. This isn't just about the Vorthons anymore. The other species are getting scared. They're starting to wonder if humans are more dangerous than they thought. After Chris left, Alex returned to his work. He had more pathogen to prepare, more supply shipments to contaminate. The disease was spreading faster than he had expected, which was good. But he needed to make sure it reached the Vorthon home world before their scientists could develop a cure. Alex had saved the most important delivery for last. A large medical supply ship was scheduled to depart for Vorthon Prime in 2 days. The ship would carry emergency medical supplies to help fight the outbreak. But Alex had made sure those supplies would make the situation much worse. The shipment included thousands of medical gel packs, all contaminated with a concentrated version of his pathogen. When those supplies reached Vorthon Prime, the disease would spread through the planet's population like wildfire, but Alex was not finished. He had one more surprise for the Vorthons, something that would make sure they understood exactly who was responsible for their suffering. He prepared a special message, encrypted in a way that only Vorthon computers could decode. The message would be hidden in the medical supply shipment's data files, set to activate when the supplies reached Vorthon Prime. The message was simple and direct. This is what happens when you attack those who dedicate their lives to healing. Your people are dying because you chose to murder doctors and patients. You called our compassion weakness. Now you will learn that compassion, when betrayed, becomes something far more dangerous than any weapon. This disease will continue to spread until every Vorthon in the galaxy understands the price of attacking the innocent. You have Dr. Maya Bennett to thank for this gift. Remember her name as you die? Alex included detailed technical specifications for the pathogen, just to prove that it was artificially created. He wanted the Vorthons to know that a single human scientist had brought their entire empire to its knees. The supply ship left Earth right on schedule. Alex watched it disappear into hyperspace, carrying its deadly cargo toward the heart of the Vorthon Empire. In just a few days, the pathogen would reach Vorthon Prime, and the real devastation would begin. Alex felt no guilt about what he was doing. The Vorthons had started this war when they attacked the Compassion. They had shown no mercy to innocent doctors and patients. They had laughed at the idea of medical neutrality and called human compassion a weakness. Now they would learn better. Reports from across Vorthon space grew more desperate each day. Entire military fleets were recalled to protect dying colonies. Trade with other species ground to a halt as everyone avoided Vorthan worlds. The mighty empire that had seemed so strong just months ago was collapsing from within, Alex received intelligence reports through his contacts in the government. The Vorthan leadership was in panic. They had tried everything to stop the disease, but nothing worked. Their scientists could not even figure out how it spread, let alone how to cure it. Some Vorthan worlds had tried to quarantine themselves, cutting off all contact with the outside galaxy, but it was too late. The pathogen was already everywhere. Hidden in medical supplies that had been distributed months ago, the irony was perfect. The Vorthans had attacked a ship carrying medical supplies meant to save lives. Now, medical supplies were the weapon destroying their civilization. Alex began, preparing for the final phase of his plan. Soon, the Vorthans would be desperate enough to beg for help. When that happened, he would reveal himself as the architect of their destruction. He would offer them a cure, but only if they paid the price he demanded. The galaxy was about to learn that humans were not weak at all. They were about to discover that when you push the gentle healers too far, you awaken something that makes military conquest look like a children's game. The message from Vorthan Prime came on a Tuesday morning. Exactly 4 months after the first outbreak, Dr. Alex Bennett was drinking coffee in his laboratory when his computer chimed with an incoming transmission. The sender was listed as the Vorthan High Command, and the message was marked as urgent. Alex opened the file and saw the face of Supreme Commander Thok, the same Vorthan leader who had laughed at human protests after the Compassion attack. But Thok was not laughing now. His gray skin looked pale and sickly, his yellow eyes were dim with pain, and his voice shook as he spoke. Human governments, Thok began, his words careful and desperate. The Vorthan Empire formally requests medical assistance to combat the disease that is destroying our people. We are prepared to negotiate terms for any help you can provide. Alex leaned back in his chair, savoring the moment. The mighty Vorthan Empire, which had seemed so strong and arrogant just months ago, was now begging for help from the species they had called weak. The pathogen had reached Vorthan Prime 3 weeks earlier, just as Alex had planned. Within days of the contaminated medical supplies arriving, the disease had spread through the planet's massive population. Millions of Vorthans were sick or dying, including most of the government and military leadership. Alex had monitored the situation. Through intelligence reports, the Vorthan scientists had finally decoded his hidden message and realized that the plague was artificial. They knew that a human had created it specifically to destroy them. But knowing the source of their problem did not help them solve it. The pathogen was too complex for them to understand, let alone cure. It adapted faster than their medical research could keep up with. Every time they thought they were close to a treatment, the disease would change and become immune to their efforts. Alex turned on the galactic news networks and watched as reporters discussed the collapse of the Vorthan Empire. Entire star systems had gone silent as the plague spread. Vorthan military forces had been recalled from across the galaxy to protect their dying worlds. Trade routes that had been controlled by Vorthan ships for decades were now empty. Other alien species were reacting with a mixture of fear and amazement. The Kalari ambassador to Earth gave an interview where she admitted that her people were reassessing their understanding of human capabilities. The Zephyrian Trade Council had already sent messages to Earth, offering better deals on rare minerals in exchange for continued friendship. Everyone wanted to stay on humanity's good side, now that they had seen what happened to those who crossed them. Admiral Chris Parker arrived at Alex's laboratory that afternoon, accompanied by 2 other high-ranking military officers. Chris looked tired and worried, but there was something else in his expression that Alex had never seen before: fear. "Alex, we need to talk," Chris said as he entered the lab. "About what?" "About the fact that every intelligence agency in human space knows you created this plague. About the fact that you've single-handedly brought down the most powerful military empire in the galaxy. About the fact that other species are now terrified of us." Alex gestured for the officers to sit down. "Is that a bad thing, Chris? Are you upset that other species finally respect human strength instead of seeing us as weak?" One of the other officers, General Martin Stone, spoke up. Dr. Bennett, what you've done goes beyond anything in the history of warfare. You've created a weapon that could wipe out entire species. Do you understand how dangerous that makes you? Alex smiled coldly. Do you understand how dangerous it made them when they attacked a hospital ship? When they murdered doctors and patients? When they laughed at our pain and called our compassion weakness? Chris leaned forward. Alex, I understand why you did this. We all loved Maya, but you've changed the balance of power in the entire galaxy. Other species are starting to think that humans are too dangerous to be allowed to exist. Let them think. That, Alex replied. It's better than thinking we're too weak to defend ourselves. The third officer, Colonel Janet Rivers, had been quiet until now. Dr. Bennett, the Vorthans are offering to surrender their entire military fleet in exchange for a cure. They're willing to accept any terms we give them. Alex had been waiting for this moment. Good, then we can finally have some justice for the compassion. Chris looked confused. What do you mean? Alex stood up and walked to his computer. With a few keystrokes, he brought up a file that contained the cure for his pathogen. It was as elegant as the weapon itself, a simple genetic therapy that would repair the damage and make Vorthans immune to future infection. I always planned to cure them eventually, Alex said. But only after they learned their lesson. Only after they paid the price for what they did. Alex had spent weeks preparing his demands. The Vorthans would surrender their entire military fleet to human command. They would pay reparations to the families of everyone killed on the Compassion. They would formally acknowledge that the attack was a war crime and apologize to the entire galaxy. Most importantly, they would accept permanent human oversight of their government to ensure they never again attacked medical personnel. You want to turn the Vorthan Empire into a human protectorate, General Stone said, reading through Alex's terms. I want to make sure that no one ever attacks a hospital ship again, Alex corrected. The Vorthans will serve as an example to the rest of the galaxy. They will show what happens when you murder those who dedicate their lives to healing others. The negotiations took place on a neutral space station in the Centauri system. Alex insisted on being present, despite objections from human government officials who thought it was too dangerous. But Alex wanted to look the Vorthans in the eye when they signed their surrender. Supreme Commander Thok arrived on a medical transport, too sick to travel on a military vessel. He was accompanied by what remained of the Vorthan leadership, all of them weakened by the plague but still alive enough to understand what was happening to their empire. Alex sat across the table from Thok, studying the alien who had ordered the attack on his sister's ship. Thok was a shadow of his former self, but his yellow eyes still burned with hatred even as he begged for mercy. You are the one called Bennett, Thok said in his broken English. The one who created the death that follows us. I am Dr. Alex Bennett. Alex replied calmly. My sister was Dr. Maya Bennett. She died trying to save lives on the Use Compassion, the hospital ship your forces attacked. Thok's face showed no emotion. War has casualties. The weak die so the strong can live, Alex leaned forward. Your empire is dying, Commander. Your people are begging me for a cure. Tell me again about who is weak and who is strong. The signing ceremony was broadcast across the galaxy. Every major species watched as the once mighty Vorthan Empire formally surrendered to humanity and accepted terms that reduced them to a client state. Thok's hand shook as he signed the documents, but he had no choice. Without the cure, his entire species would be extinct within a year. Alex provided the cure immediately after the signing, true to his word. Within weeks, Vorthan patients began recovering from the plague, but their empire would never recover its former strength. Their military ships were transferred to human command, their government operated under human supervision, and their expansion across the galaxy came to a permanent end. The other alien species took careful note of what had happened. The Kalari government issued a formal statement reaffirming their respect for medical neutrality. The Zephyrian Council passed new laws making attacks on hospital ships punishable by death. Even species that had been hostile to humans began reaching out with offers of friendship and cooperation. 6 months after the surrender, Alex received a visit from Dr. Nina Foster, his former research assistant. Nina had left when she realized what Alex was planning, but now she wanted to understand what had happened. Was it worth it? She asked as they sat in Alex's laboratory. Was your revenge worth reshaping the entire galaxy? Alex looked at the picture of Maya on his desk. It wasn't about revenge, Nina. It was about making sure this never happens again. The Vorthans attacked a hospital ship because they thought humans were weak. They thought our compassion made us helpless. Alex turned to face Nina. Now every species in the galaxy knows better. They know that attacking those who heal carries a price that no empire can afford to pay. Nina shook her head. But look what you've become, Alex. You used to create things that saved lives. Now you're known as the man who brought down an empire with a plague. I'm known as the man who made sure no one will ever attack a hospital. Ship again, Alex corrected. Every medical ship that travels through space is safer because of what I did. Every doctor and nurse who serves on those ships is protected by the example I made of the Vorthans. Alex had been offered positions in the government, opportunities to use his skills for official military projects. But he had turned them all down. He returned to his research, focusing once again on ways to save lives rather than take them. But everyone knew that the quiet scientist who studied alien biology was also the man who had rewritten the rules of galactic politics. A year after the surrender, the UES Maya Bennett was launched from Earth's orbital shipyards. It was the largest hospital ship ever built, equipped with the most advanced medical technology available.